Hi everyone, I'm Precious and you're welcome back to my channel Beyond the Blows, where we'll talk about everything affecting our present reality. And the topic of conversation today is tribal bias, a bane to progressive Nigeria. It's evident in our society the limitations that tribal biases or tribalism has cursed each and every citizen of this country, and these limitations go as far as education, employment, marriages. It's clear in small communities where there is a total refusal for collaboration amongst communities over, well, really baseless reasons. And well, if we say we're one Nigeria and we're supposed to be united, then what is the reason for these tribal biases, and why does it continue to be a worm that eats into our road? Well, without pleasure, I would like to introduce my guest, Samuel Okabwe, a law graduate and certified critical thinker and problem solver. Hi, Samuel.
Hi, Precious.
Well, my first question to you is, for those of us who do not have a clear understanding of the term tribal bias, can you shed light on the term and the origins of the term tribal bias?
Well, tribalism, or the word tribal bias, refers to the inability of a person to make genuine decisions or formulate honest opinions based on the awareness that persons involved are of the same belief or culture. Now, it is a strong identification with persons of the same tribe in such a way, in a manner that affects the neutrality of the person involved. Now, this goes beyond just definition. It goes beyond the definitions that we were given in primary school. It goes beyond the internalization we happened. It goes beyond internalization. In fact, it's ingrained in our system, and it's something we, like you said, end up experiencing at every stage in our life. Now, much more than the definition, like I said earlier on, it's something we happen to understand better because we experience it as we go on in a process which sociologists refer to as social interaction. As we interact more with our society, we get to understand that tribalism is a huge problem in the society. It affects even the fragments, those fragments of society that happen or appear to be little to us. It affects those fragments, and it can be seen in every sector: the educational sector, the employment sector. It can be seen in even at the places where you don't even expect these things to be. You end up realizing that this tribalism or tribal bias as a word affects our day-to-day activities. And it gets to a stage where it happens to be that we understand it better. Like I said, we understand it better because we experience it. And at that stage, it becomes not just a definition, but an actual feeling based on the experiences that we get in our society. Now, imagine a 24-year-old graduate going to the employment going to the employment sector to apply for a job, and then he gets there and there are four other people that are also applying for that job, and then the employer goes through their um, the employer goes through their CV and realizes that these persons have very good qualifications, but at some point he's able to understand that a particular person is actually more qualified than the other persons. But based on the fact that he is unable to identify with that person's culture, is unable to identify with that person's ethnicity, he happens to put one or two of those other people that he is able to identify with their cultures before the other person that happens to be more qualified than the rest of the applicants. Now, this is a clear example of what goes on in our society. It's a daily problem, and it has continued to eat us deep. It has continued to eat deep into the society. Now, like you said you would like me to um, try to point out or trace the origin of this problem. Well, a lot of people believe that the problem or the origin of the problem of tribalism or tribal bias is as far as 1960, when Nigeria got its independence. But honestly, I would like you to follow this logical explanation. Now, in 1914, Lord Lugard signed a document which consolidated the northern protectorate and the Lagos and the colony, and then the southern protectorate of Nigeria. What this meant was that these protectorates happened to function independently. These protectorates happened to function independently, and by bringing them together, they were going to become unified. And you need to understand that these were regions, these were protectorates that had different cultures, that had different languages, that had different ways of life. Now, as that when Britain consolidated this northern and southern protectorate, they did it for a purpose, and which is what I want us to focus on. A lot of people can tell you that that tribalism is a problem that goes as far as 1914. Some could tell you that it's a problem that go as far as 1960. But not everybody is able to tell you why exactly we were amalgamated. Even back then in secondary school, they would tell us the amalgamation took place in 1914 by Sir Lord Lugard, when under which the northern and southern protectorates were consolidated. But the one major thing that they are unable to explain to us is why. Now, as that when the northern and southern protectorates and the colony were consolidated, the main reason why the Britain consolidated this region was for economic exploitation. These regions were brought together in order to protect Britain's economic interests. Now, these regions were not brought together for the sole purpose of governance. In fact, history has it that the northern region had a deficit budget, and the Britons thought it wise to field these regions together in order to facilitate their economic interests, in order to improve the economy, in order to be able to use the budget surplus of the southern Nigeria to balance the deficit of northern Nigeria. Now, it happened to be that upon the it happened to be that even after Britain relinquished control of Nigeria, the continuation of this structure was eventually going to be a colossal mistake, because the purpose for which these regions were consolidated, the purpose for which these regions were brought together was not for governance, like I had earlier said. It wasn't for political reasons. It was strictly for economic reasons. In fact, it was in such a way that even while the Britons were still in control of these regions, they allowed these regions to operate in a system I would refer to as confederalism, in the sense that each region could handle their affairs themselves. The northern region would handle their affairs themselves. The southern region would handle their affairs themselves, and then at the end of the day, they would report back to the government that the Britons had put in place to oversee these regions. So it was more like a confederalism. So the continuation of this structure was faulty in the sense that we decided to we decided not to pay attention to the fact that this was done mainly for economic reasons and to facilitate the British economic interest, like I had earlier stated.
Okay.
Now, the question that could come to your mind is, does it mean Nigeria is built on a faulty structure? Does it mean that the foundation of this country is wrong ab initio? That is, does it mean that right from the start, right from the bottom of right from the deep foundations of the country, there is a fundamental problem, or there are fundamental problems that we need to address? Well, like I said, imagine erecting a foundation which is intended to carry a two-story building.
Okay.
And at the end of the day, you end up erecting a skyscraper on a foundation that is meant to hold a two-story building. And this analogy is to drive home the fact that there is a huge difference between economic interest in comparison with political and governing objectives.
In relation to what you said, does it mean Nigeria was built on a faulty foundation, that the cultural differences, religious differences, and so on weren't adequately considered? That Nigeria was continuing on a structure that wasn't exactly based on good governance, but for economic exploitation?
Well, that's a brilliant question
Thank
to
you.
begin with. By virtue of Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it is evident that these problems were emphasized. For instance, Section 14, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution states that the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall be a state based on democracy and social justice. Now, if you go to subsection 3 of the same section, it states that the composition of the government of the Federation and its agencies shall be in such a way that would reflect the federal character of Nigeria. And it states importantly that there shall be no predominance of persons from certain ethnic groups, place of origin, or sectional groups. Now, Section 15, subsection 1 of the 1999 Constitution states that the motto of the Federal Republic of Nigeria shall be unity and faith, peace and progress. Now, subsection 2 of the same section states that accordingly, that is, in order to achieve the provisions of subsection 1, national integration shall be encouraged, and that there shall be no discrimination on grounds of state of origin, ethnic grounds, on grounds of state of origin, ethnicity, sex, or religion. Now, Section 16 also explains that the economic resources of the country shall be used in such a way that will promote national prosperity. Note the word national prosperity and not the prosperity of certain sections, of certain regions. Now, other sections in that chapter discusses other rights ranging from social rights to political rights. It discusses the rights to education, discusses the freedom of the press, and so on. Now, Section 13 of 1999 Constitution of in that same chapter states that it shall be the duty and responsibility of the city, or it shall be the duty and responsibility of the government, that's the organs of government, and all other persons and authorities to ensure that the provisions of this chapter is followed. Now, from the provision of this section in Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, it is apparent that despite the fact that the amalgamation was done for the sole purpose of facilitating Britain's economic interests and the economic exploitation of these regions, that in making the constitution, it was understood that these were important factors for a united and progressive Nigeria. However, by virtue of Section 6, subsection 6, paragraph C of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the provisions in Chapter 2 of that same constitution are rendered unenforceable. It therefore follows that if the provisions in Chapter 2 are not fulfilled, one cannot go to court to enforce these provisions. And it is really tragic that a single section and subsection of Chapter 1 of the Constitution can render the entire Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution invalid, in fact, unimportant, in the true sense of the word, useless. The major objective of the unification of the Southern and Northern Protectorates were on the ground that the provisions in Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution was going to be followed stricto sensu, and that it shall be ensured that despite the ethnic differences, despite the language barriers, despite the religious differences, that the country would still be able to work, and that there will be unity in the country, and that there will be peace and progress. And in Nigeria today, we can't even boast of the provisions of Section 15 of Chapter we can't even boast of the provisions of Section 15 of 1999 Constitution, which in itself reveals the motto of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, which is unity and faith, peace and progress. You can imagine.
Wow, what an enlightening conversation. Some of the things that you spoke about, I had no prior understanding of them. Well, in conclusion, I would like for you to, in your own opinion, give us the most effective ways to combat the bane of tribal bias in our society.
Well, tribal bias is deeply ingrained in the system. From the government to the smallest units of the society, we see large traces of tribal bias. In fact, in Nigeria today, merit is at the mercy of what is known as connection or ethnic favoritism. Even in schools, students are not properly educated on the threat that tribalism poses to the unity, peace, and progress of the country. Even parents raise their children with stereotypes about different ethnic groups. In my opinion, as a solution to this problem, significant effort should be made in the educational sector in order to inform the students of the threat that tribalism poses to the unity, peace, and progress of Nigeria. Parents should raise their children in such a way that they do not become progenitors of this same problem. Also, in consideration of the unenforceability of Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution, which has led to economic inequality and social injustice in Nigeria today, amendments should be made to remedy this problem. Possibly, an independent body which would ensure that the provisions of Chapter 2 of the Constitution, though unenforceable, are not abandoned, should be created. This body would serve as a check on the affairs of the state in relation to the observance and application of the provisions of Chapter 2 of the 1999 Constitution.